Hi, everyone. We're back. We're walking through the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I'm here with Joy Whitman.
Hello.
Miriam Shumaker.
Hello.
And I'm Holly Smith. We're really happy that you're here with us today. We are just gradually going through the book. It's The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. It's a great book. We've said before, it's an easy principle, not easy, simple principle, but not necessarily easy to implement, but well worth it. Today, we're going to be talking about the solution. We've been talking about the situation. Now we're going to start talking about the solution. So we're here on MeWe at MeWe.com Fridays at noon, once a week until we finish up with the discussion in the book. The page is Today's Abundant Living with Holly Smith. And you may also be watching this on YouTube. If you are, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and just ring that bell so you can get notifications. So shall we jump in?
Sure.
All right. So this chapter, if you're following along, if you're reading along with us, we're in the chapter Hint, the solution isn't more time. So what do you have to say, ladies?
Well, I think last week I jumped ahead a little bit because that was one of the little snippets that I brought up was if you had an extra hour in the day, what would you do with it? And this is exactly what he's talking about.
Yes.
I have uttered that phrase quite a few times.
Yeah.
Yes, as have I. I think many of us have, but I like his insight that we would just fill them the same. If we're in a pattern, if I'm a shopaholic and I have 1,000 square foot house and I filled it to the brim, and I buy a 2,000 square foot house and I'm still a shopaholic, I'm going to fill that house to the brim too.
Yeah.
If I'm a busyaholic, a hurryaholic, and I had more time in the day, I would still be a busy hurryaholic and I would still fill those hours.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's the same principle. I mean, that's, you have a bigger house, you're going to fill it with things. And then, oh, I don't have enough room for this stuff. Well, you know what? You lived in a smaller house before and you had plenty of room, but so it doesn't always mean more isn't always better.
Right. Right. If we have an unhealthy imbalance in an area, until we change that imbalance, it's just going to continue to grow into whatever space there is for it to grow into, whether it's a space of time or actual literal space or our mind, our life.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of his, what would you do? Go base jumping, knit a winter coat, start a nonprofit, whatever you did, you'd likely end up just like me, even more exhausted than you are now. Because that's just, it's nobody's going to think about that extra hour to do nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember
and
when
technology,
go ahead.
Technology has given us a lot of extra time. We don't have to take the laundry out and scrub it on the board and rinse it off and hang it up. And
for sure.
So many things that make life easier. The dishwasher washes the dishes for us. And, in one section of the book, he mentions that in 1960, they were people that do predictions were looking ahead to 1985. And we're saying because of all this technology and things are so much easier to do now, by 1985, we'll only have to work about a quarter of what we work right now. We'll only have to work about 22 hours per week for about half of the year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And statistically, we're working more now than we did then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And working on the weekend to catch up from what we didn't get during the week.
Right. Right.
Well, especially women who work in particular, that's, you work all week long, and then unless you have a spouse who is a complete, half of you and actually does work at home, housework of some kind, then you have to end up doing it all on the weekend.
Right.
So, you work all week and then you got to work on the weekend to do everything you didn't get to do at home because you worked all week. Right. It's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And I think too, one of the things that I've noticed, I think that makes a difference culturally is not that many generations ago, a couple generations ago, we lived in smaller communities. Everybody went to the same local church. So if there was an event, everybody you knew went to the event.
Right.
You all went to the same weddings, you all went to the same everything. And so you saw everybody. Now we're so spread out that, we all have different functions. We're all in, different locations, different churches, different neighborhoods, different events that we're going to. So that's one of the things that Jim and I really, work on is, relational things, and the relationships are so spread out that it takes some extra effort, or bringing them together. We do that sometimes too. I know tonight meeting some gals for dinner, and not all of them know each other, but they're all people that I know and love, and I know they'll all get to know and love each other. And so it's a fun way, to bring everybody together. But I think there's, as we become more and more spread out, that becomes more of a thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like his, one thing I did underline here is time to slow down and simplify our lives around what really matters. That's exactly what, and yeah, the distance thing can become a huge hindrance, obviously, because I live an hour from you, Holly, and I wouldn't love more than anything to be able to get together on a weekly basis, or even every other week or something, go to dinner or something. It's just much more difficult. And I understand that it's a choice that we made to move out this way, but it makes it more difficult to be able to find those times to be able to get together.
It does. Yeah, it does. It makes, and I know too, wanting to do everything. I know in my 20s, which is a couple of years ago, I really, I wanted to do everything, just mostly because it existed. I wanted to see every place. I want anything, just I wanted to do it just simply because it was there and it existed. And that's just not realistic. The things that I thought looked great in my 20s aren't necessarily the same things I would look at today. But even today, there's lots of good things that I would enjoy if I did them.
Right.
But I've just learned that they just aren't all the priority. They just aren't. It's really, you really have to purposefully look at what are my priorities, what really is important. We really do need to seek first the kingdom and God's righteousness. It's just making that core, that foundation, and then building out from that. And some things that look fun and exciting, and I guess too, I've realized I've done a lot of traveling. I like to travel. I like to see places, but, and I still do. It's not that I don't, but it used to be I wanted to see every place. I want to see every single place. And now, I don't know. I like seeing other places, but a lot of them look just like the other one I saw.
Yeah.
True.
Right. Yeah, they do. I like when he talks about, as we're talking about priorities, he talks about one of the key tasks of our apprenticeship to Jesus is living into both our potential and our limitations. Both our potential and our limitations. So, he talks about our giftings and our callings and our talents, but he also talks about limitations, and that is extremely countercultural.
Oh, completely.
In our culture, it's all, think it and dream it and believe it. And the word says, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. Those are all the things he calls me to, but the limitations I have, he also gave to me. And they're part of me, and they're part of me for a reason.
Right.
Yeah. And they don't make us any less valuable or any less worth loving.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we can't do it all, or we don't have every gift there is.
Right.
And as we get older, our limitations become a lot more obvious. Because you just don't have the stamina or the energy. That's just the physicality of it. And sometimes you do have to understand that, you know what, there are some limitations. Maybe I can't necessarily go and do that. I laughed at his, these new hashtags that are so common anymore that he points out in here, YOLO and FOMO, fear of missing out. That was not so much, I've never really experienced that problem because that's more for, I think the younger generation has that a whole lot more, that feeling a whole lot more because of social media.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't feel like that really affects me as much because we didn't grow up in that world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I always giggle and laugh at the you only live once, the YOLO one, because I know that I'm not going to just live once.
Right.
I have a whole other eternity future in my mind. So, that I'm heading for. So I really don't like that hashtag. I never have.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to necessarily do it all now.
Right.
When we're in our eternal life, we're going to have opportunities that we never even imagined that we have now.
Right.
And that's exciting to me. So I don't feel like I'm missing out if I don't end up doing it now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And the doing it all, a lot of what's out there, not that a lot of it couldn't be fun but in the long run, does it really, mean anything? Does it really, I went skydiving once years ago and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And part of it was I had some fear of heights. And so I was pushing that envelope because I've really seen fear. If you allow it to cripple you in one area, it can cripple you in another. So I had a why behind it, and it was fun. But ultimately, when it all comes down to everything, did it matter?
Right. Right. I can find other ways to tackle my fear of heights. Sorry, I can't jump out of a plane for it.
And just other things too,
Right.
Anything like that's, that's the fun, or it's just, I think I had said a couple of weeks ago, Jim and I started weighing things out. We would get invitations to things and different things. We couldn't do all of them. And we started measuring things against, will this matter 3 years from now?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good one. I do like that one.
Yeah. I almost get excited when two invitations come for the same time period. I'd be like, oh yes, we can only go to one of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's happened. That's happened to me with graduation parties. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
I think this year though, we're very minimal on it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's not that there's any of those you don't want to go to.
Right.
Usually if we get an invitation,
Right.
someone we care about, we enjoy the
Right,
event,
sure.
but it's just,
Yeah.
there's just so much.
Yeah.
There's just so much. And everything has become an event. There's even pre-events for events. If you look at, weddings now, there's a wedding. Of course, there was the rehearsal dinner, and we started having engagement parties, and we started having, save the dates, and we started having, mark your calendar to save the date, to hold the date to go. It's just,
my hairdresser just told me about her cousin's getting married and he's having a bachelor week. The whole week before. I'm thinking, holy cow.
Yeah. So
So
the
it does.
events
They
have
become
just become bigger and more. And anybody who invites me to something, I can't think of the last time they invited me. I didn't enjoy them. I wouldn't like to go, but it's just, there's so many. There's so many. So we have to, again, set things around what the priorities are and make sure there's margin. Make sure there's margin and live into our limitations. That is not a worldly message. That is far from worldly. It's, it's all about, think big, think it and be it. And I like, he says on page 69, what if these limitations aren't something to fight, but to gratefully accept as a signpost to God's call on our souls?
Yeah.
I like
that's
that.
very true. Just a way to kind of look at a different way to look at limitations.
Right. Right. He says, life is a series of choices. Every yes is 1,000 no's. So we need to pick those. We need to be purposeful. I like you, last week we talked about, the moments today and tomorrow, and they add up to what our life becomes, what our life is. So really looking back, and last week I talked about Stephen Covey, and again, this is really, we're doing John Mark Comer, and I keep reading, but I do like the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about, there's an exercise he does about, looking forward. He actually has you basically writing a eulogy, and it's for you from 3 different aspects, 3 different people in your life. And it gives you an idea, what do I want my life to be? And then going backwards from that, well, what does today need to look like for that to be who I am? And I just think that's really, really important. It's really, really key. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the biggest key, which we're going to get into as we move into the solution, these are not things that we can do really on our own. The biggest key is connecting with our God.
Yes.
In
for sure.
a real, true, deep relational way. And we're really going to get into that. The 4 exercises he talks about, that's really what they do. And that's from where only, everything good comes from. And that's where we get the self-discipline, which is part of the fruit of the Spirit. And that's where we get the wisdom, which, the divine wisdom that comes from the Lord. And, the things that will allow us to align like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just gets scary. When he's talking about, he's a reader and he reads 2 or 3 books a week, and he talks about, how long, all these calculations of what he does, 417 hours, to read. What did it say? Read that speed. We could all read 200 books a year, nearly twice my quota, in just 417 hours. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, that's over an hour a day. And then can you guess how much time the average American spends on social media a year? Number 705 hours. And then TV, 2,735 and a half hours. I mean, that it's just when you bring them, as a whole like that, and you're looking at it, you think, holy camole, that's a lot of time to either spend, I should say, or waste, or could you be reprioritizing?
Right. Right.
During a lot of
I
that.
think we talked about this before. It's kind of like years and years ago, I was trying to set up a budget, and I started calculating everything I spent, I don't know for what period of time. And I was amazed at how much I spent that was under, $5, but it doesn't seem significant. And so same thing with you sit down to watch a TV show or be on social media just for a little bit, or and it doesn't seem significant because at that moment it's a small piece, but when it all adds up, it's huge.
Yeah, exactly.
He says, I'm going to read this from page 71, and don't throw tomatoes at the screen, everybody. He says, this is the terrifying aspect of this conversation for me. Most of us waste copious amounts of time, myself included. For all the talk about hurry and overload, most of it is self-inflicted.
It's true.
Yeah. It's a hard truth, though.
It is. It is. The average, and in that same paragraph, the average guy spends 10,000 hours playing video games by age 21. 10,000 hours. That's just, yeah. You could memorize the New Testament in 10,000 hours.
Memorize it.
I don't know if I could do that, but I have a hard time. I have a hard time remembering what I read a week ago.
But it is astonishing, I mean, it really, it's not that playing a video game is all that bad, or watching a TV show, but when we look at, those are the minutes of our life. Those are what are making.
That you're never going to get back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like almost anything, anything in moderation is fine. It's when it becomes excessive like that and it takes over every other aspect of your life, when that obviously becomes a problem, big problem.
And I like, I've seen other books that talk about these kinds of statistics, and they, tell you cut back on those things and fill it up with some good things. But I like, as we get into the solution, it really that's not the direction he takes.
No, right.
He really takes a completely different direction. And
Mhm.
we kind of go into the next, taking on the easy yoke. I mean, really apprenticing under Jesus. And I've been applying some of these things, and I can tell you it's been really life-changing.
Mhm.
And I don't want to spoiler alert, but the second discipline Jim and I put into place February of 2021. So we've been practicing it for a little while now. And it's been amazing. I'll save that for that discussion, but it's really been amazing.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that he definitely, you know, his it's apprenticing under Jesus and living the life that Jesus lived. And he really, he takes it to a different level than I've seen anyone
Mhm.
take it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then this particular chapter just, ends up with a very simple answer. How a question is, how do we slow down, simplify, and live deliberately right in the middle of the chaos of the noisy, fast-paced, urban, digital world we call home? The answer, of course, is easy. Follow Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's, it is easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's simple. I think I
Right.
always try to separate, it's simple, but it's super countercultural. So
Yeah.
it's not easy in the sense it takes being purposeful. I mean,
Right.
thankfully we have the Holy Spirit. This is what the Lord wants for us. So he will, give us what we need to do it. But the answer is, it is simple. And that
Mhm.
leads into the next chapter, which is the secret of the easy yoke.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah. Any more on this one, or shall we wrap up for today and plan on doing the secret of the easy yoke next week?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Well, it's been great to have everybody come in and journey with us. We look forward to seeing you next week as we look at the secret of the easy yoke. So be blessed and be well. See you next
Bye-bye.
week.
Bye-bye.